everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOC Reader, and welcome welcome back to my channel. So June ended up being a pretty busy reading month. It was the month where I read the most books this year, and there's a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. So I started off the month by finishing Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun by Tola Akuwu, and I talked about it a little bit before in a previous video, but it is a middle grade magic school fantasy. So it's about this British Nigerian girl, and I did appreciate how it kept like a little bit of the British slang in there, because I know sometimes when it comes to books written by British authors that are simultaneously published in the US, they try to change some of the wording to make it more palatable for the US audience. So like I recognized words from Black British vernacular that I was kind of familiar with, and so I think that's a great thing that it kept that. And our character still felt distinctly British. She is British Nigerian, and she never quite feels like she fits in, and her mom always has them constantly moving around. And she also has this long hair that she just can't tame no matter how hard her mom tries. And one day she goes to like a pool party or something, and she has to save her best friend from drowning. Somehow her hair is able to save them because she's not the best swimmer, and that's when she finds out her hair has these psychokinetic powers. Her mom whisks her away to this magic school in Nigeria and leaves her there after revealing she is a Solari, which are these special African people who have kind of like a mutant DNA. Her father was a Solari, and her mom is going to leave her at the school while she is searching the world for him. So this one was like the intro to a series, and it read very straightforward. I think it'll be good for the middle grade reader who hasn't really read fantasy before. If you've read a lot of fantasies, nothing in this is really surprising, and it probably won't like stand out as much, but overall it was cute. I did listen to part of it via audio, and I thought the narration was great. So then the next book that I had finished during the month was What a Match by Mimi Grace, and this was just adorable. So definitely fall vibes. If you like those types of stories, we did get to see them go to a harvest festival, and there's even a little incident with the runaway pumpkin that's kind of cute. So it follows Anthony and Gwen. So Anthony has had a crush on Gwen for a few years now, but he's never really tried to talk to her, and at the time she had him in, so he wasn't trying to make a move on her. Now they're both single, and Gwen is like doing this matchmaking service because she's really trying to find a good quality guy, and Anthony ends up having to stay in her apartment after his apartment needs to be evacuated. There's some issue with the heating system, and it's fall, so it's about time to turn on the heat. You can't have them in that apartment with no heat. He was supposed to stay with his best friend, who is Gwen's brother. However, because his best friend is like renovating and the paint fumes are too much for him to stay, he's like, oh, just stay with my sister, not knowing that, thinking that anything's gonna pop off between Anthony and Gwen. So if best friend's like sister is your type of romance, you'll definitely enjoy this one. I thought they had great chemistry. I like how their little friendship developed into something more, and overall this was just a fun experience. So then I read Battle Royale by Liesl Adams, and this is a graphic novel. So it's like aimed as a YA graphic novel, but to me it read more for the middle grade crowd. I feel like for the YA crowd it just stayed a little too surface level. even though the characters are getting ready to head off for college, nothing about it to me felt very YA per se. Like, so these two best friends work at a diner owned by the male character's mother, and it follows mainly Rose, who she is an aspiring pastry chef. She loves to make all these little dessert creations, and she wants to go to this fancy school. However, her family is in the middle of divorcing and they just don't have enough money to cover it. So she gets this opportunity from a critic to join this reality show baking competition. And the reality show competition, I guess you could say it's kind of like the Great British Bake Off, except it also has these like wild challenges. And honestly, I just wanted a little bit more of that reality show, because I feel like they put it together very, very quickly in a way that no way resembled like a real life reality show. It also wasn't really clear as to like what backgrounds the contestants were coming from and all their ages, because some of the teams felt older and some felt younger. And then we didn't, unlike with like when you're watching a reality show baking competition, you didn't get to like really know the other teams too much to like be rooting for anything. Like obviously you're gonna root for Rose because she's the main character, but I don't feel like the setup fully went there like the way a reality show would play out. Even like the little drama between Rose and her friend Ed, it just, they have like crushes on each other that it's kind of hinted throughout the book, and then they finally like end up getting together, but it's not like, I don't know, like they had this scene where they were like meeting up for this dinner that they want as a part of the show, and then they like snuck in a kiss hoping like the camera wouldn't see, and I would have thought like it would have came back up, and it didn't. But like it was a cute quick read, like definitely my first book by this author. I know she's done a lot of animation stuff, and I would definitely check out more of hers, but if you're looking for like a real like a YA story, this one just felt a little bit more middle grade. It was very straightforward, but the art was really pretty. So then I listened to Perfect Score by A.M. Ellis, which is a hunt-a-killer original novel. I've never played that game. I don't really know anything about that game other than it's kind of like a murder mystery game. So it follows Jolene, who is attending this fancy private school in Chicago, and she's really into solving mysteries, and one of her teachers like really pushes them to open up their mind, and like they work out these like mysteries during class. And one day they're at the train station and she sees him get pushed, but she doesn't see who did it. And of course she's shaken up because she saw her teacher murdered in front of her. So then she and her friends are determined to find the person who killed him. And then they find out like he was investigating this big scandal, and he was getting ready to blow the whistle on the people involved. And it was very reminiscent of like some of the mystery books that I read during my childhood. Very quick read. I think the younger readers are definitely going to enjoy it. Now I did listen to the audiobook, and I wasn't a fan of the narrator. Like, this is set in Chicago, and the accent she was giving was a little bit iffy. Accents and audiobooks are a big thing for me. It wasn't super long of a book. It just felt a little longer because of the way it was read to, and like her inflection was a little bit flat. But overall, it was an interesting mystery. So the next book that I read during the month was Zyla and Kai by Christina. And Zyla and Kai is her third book. It is actually with a different publisher than her first two. and I could kind of see the difference. I really enjoyed I Want to Be Where You Are and Now That I Found You, and I felt like those were a little bit tighter written than Zyla and Kai. Like in Zyla and Kai, she took a different approach in that you start the book knowing that they broke up, and there's like a little bit of a mystery where they kind of ran off and people are trying to figure out why. And I don't know, it like the mystery part just really did not work for me, because we're told their love story through flashbacks and it goes on for like an entire year, from the time they meet at this amusement park working together during the summer throughout the school year, and they go to different schools, so but live in the same neighborhood, so we kind of see them meet up throughout and interact. And I did think they were really cute and had great chemistry, but because it stretched throughout the year, I felt it went on a little bit too long. And then the mystery part just felt so anticlimactic when we actually got to the point where we got to find out what happened. It just kind of happened quickly and was brushed over. I felt that this book was way too long. It was a lot longer than her other books, and I think it was a little over 400 pages, which is a lot for a romance, especially a YA romance. I think if it would have been shorter, it would have hit a little bit better for me, because there was one point where I felt like we were just going through their day-to-day routine and it felt like nothing was really happening, and I found myself getting a little bit bored and I wasn't as engaged with what was going on. So overall, I do think that Zyla and Kai were very well written. I liked that Kai was soft, which I'm seeing a lot more softer black boys in books now, and I appreciate that depiction. He also was in constant therapy because he lost his parents at a young age, and his aunt and uncle put him in therapy to help him cope with that. So we got to see some of his therapy sessions, which were very interesting. And there were some complicated relationships between Zyla and her mother and her father, because her mom constantly gets in these new relationships and puts her all into these new relationships and just kind of ignores her to put her all into these people who end up doing her wrong and leaving her. And then her parents broke up when she was younger, and her dad also is always in a new relationship and he lives in another state, and then when he's out of a relationship he likes to pop back in and play family again with them, and she's tired of her mom like always falling for it and like cozying up to him and playing big happy family, like they're going to get together and they never end up getting together. So I did think it was very well written. It wasn't a 5-star for me because of the parts that dragged with it being too long. So then I read Swimming with Sharks, and that is by Melissa Christina Marquez, and it follows the Villalobos family, who are a Latinx family that hosts their own nature show where they travel the world helping save animals. And it was a very fun like story, great for young readers. I think they'll really enjoy it. It reminded me of growing up and watching like Steve Irwin and Jeff Corbin, and watching Discovery Kids and all these animal shows. So it's like very reminiscent to my childhood, and what kids aren't fascinated by the world around us and the different creatures out in the wild. And this was pretty cool because it is like book 2 of the Wild Survival series. So there's 3 books so far, and they all take place in different parts of the world. This one took place in Sri Lanka. So the family traveled to Sri Lanka to investigate the findings of this very rare shark, and the people in town are afraid of shark attacks, so they try to destigmatize that and show them how sharks are needed for the local ecosystem and to make them more comfortable around them. It focuses on Adriana, who is the youngest Villalobos child, and she is doing her own part to raise awareness about sharks. And this was just a lot of fun, very quick read. I listened to the audiobook, it was great. Spanish is perfectly sprinkled throughout. There's fun facts about Sri Lanka and the people. And one of the things that I liked that it focused on was about how these people come in and like they are doing research and they're trying to help local animals, but they're also disrupting the culture. So it's important to keep in mind the local people and not try to phase them out in your environmental safety efforts. So that was really interesting. So after Swimming with Sharks, I then went on to read A Proposal They Can't Refuse by Natalie Kanaw. And this was from one of the Harlequin lines, not their main category romance, but they have like another imprint. And this was her debut. It was very interesting. They are marketing as Latinx romance, which I don't like because it's not really Latinx romance. So one of the main characters, Camila, is Puerto Rican, but then the other main character, Liam, is Irish. And I thought the book did a really great job, like really incorporating both of their cultures into the story. So they are former childhood best friends. Their grandfathers are best friends who live in like this. Well, I wasn't really sure. That's where the book confused me, because I wasn't sure if it was just like senior apartments or it was a nursing home environment, because at first it read like a nursing home, but then it was like the way they would be able to come and go and move around so freely, it was feeling like senior apartments. But then like I also wasn't sure if it was supposed to be like an assisted living. It was a little bit confused because I don't really feel like the book made that part clear. But anyway, their grandfathers are best friends and they're scheming. And long story short, they scheme these two into faking to be engaged in order to have Liam's grandfather get much needed treatment for his cancer. So with fake dating, I always find that it's so like more and more the reasons that these people are fake dating is so contrived. It was a little contrived here, but it wasn't as bad as books I've read recently. I did like that Camila helped run her family's restaurant, which was right next door to Liam's family's distillery. And they both are good at their job and they want to do what's right for their family businesses, but their other families are pushing back against the changes that they're trying to make. I thought they had great chemistry. The only thing is there was this great lead up to the sex scene, and then the sex was basically off page, which kind of fell flat, and that annoyed me a little bit. And then we didn't really get too many sexy times after. Also, I want to say like 25% before the book ended, there was a sudden shift. Like the whole time it was reading rom-com, and despite Liam's grandfather having cancer, it was for the most part the book was still reading light. Then it just took this really dark turn, and it talked about how Liam's father and Nana died, and the way in which they died felt very reminiscent of a celebrity death in 2020. And I know this book would have been written about around that time, so I'm not sure if the author got inspiration from that, but it shifted the complete tone of the book to the point where it just didn't fit, and it made it harder to read and kind of threw everything off. After that, the book just like wasn't quite right for me, and I feel like the ending was a little bit rushed. So prior to that, I was just like loving it, really enjoying it. After that, I kind of mellowed out to the point where I just ended up just barely finishing it because it wasn't like something I wanted to rush to the end anymore, so I had mixed feelings about this one. I read Under the Mango Tree, which is by Valdine Mark, illustrated by Sawyer Cloud. This was just a really cute picture book. Valdine Mark is a Caribbean-born author, and this book was set in the Caribbean. It's just a fun story about a friendship between two girls and how, despite one moving away, they have the great memories of each other. So that was a lot of fun and perfect buffer before the next story that I got into. I decided to finally read Blood Cyan. I've actually had the book since it released. I won it in a giveaway, and I was very curious about it, but I didn't want to read it so soon after reading the Blood Trials because that book was very fresh in my mind, and I knew inevitably I would end up comparing it. And throughout I did end up comparing it because they both have that blood magic thing going on. They're both debut books, and they both have a military aspect, and while I thought the Blood Trials did very well in the military aspect, Blood Cyan did not. So I heard great things about this book from so many people, so I was really upset when it missed the mark. I read it as a buddy read with Brittany from Ellen and Eclectic, and I feel like we both only finished because we were doing the buddy read, because it was kind of a struggle for both of us to get through. I feel like the lead, Sloane, she didn't have strong characterization. The book started off strong for like maybe the first 10 chapters. It was reading very adult like fiction, and I felt like the author was trying to send these strong messages about war and child slavery and all this corruption in Africa. But then I don't know if she changed, this book had started adult and she changed it to be YA because it didn't seamlessly fit together. The beginning was very adult, the end was very typical YA, and it didn't really match what she was saying in the beginning. The military aspect was poorly done. I'm not sure what her research consisted of, but she was misusing terms to mean one thing when they actually meant something else. The way her military operated made no sense whatsoever. It just, for anybody's military, it doesn't matter where the military was, the way it was operating wasn't make sense. It made no sense that Sloane and crew had to go through the basic training process for a month, and then her love interest, when he was talking about the basic training process, we're supposed to believe it went on for years. So that part was iffy. The timelines were kind of messy. It really didn't feel like a fantasy because she barely used her magic, but at the same time was rapidly healed from this one attack, and I'm just there was no mention of her using her magic to heal from this attack, so how is she rapidly healing from this brutal attack? And I don't think that the themes that this book addressed in the beginning were addressed as well throughout, and so I can't even say, well, she really did a great job doing that, because it wasn't well done. As far as the book being dark, in the beginning, not so much the end. It just kind of didn't read any differently from any other non-regular world-based YA fantasy I've read. I didn't like that all we got to see of Sloane was her trauma. We never got a sense of her personality because it was just her reacting from trauma to trauma to trauma. And there were multiple attempted rapes in this book that were just kind of used to move the story along and have her display her powers, and I didn't really like that either. The pacing was very strange because it was slow but fast at the same time. Fast in that the military process was moving way too fast and that they tried to squeeze in so much over the course of a month, but slow in that the book didn't really seem to move much. So this wasn't a great experience, and I will not be continuing with this duology. So then finally, to round out the month, I read 2 books by Reese Ryan. I find once I start reading one from Reese Ryan, I'm like immediately ready to jump into another one. So the first one that I read was His Until Midnight, which is a part of the Harlequin Desires Texas Cattlemen's Club series, and I found this one really fun. It is a best friends to lovers type of situation. So Tessa and Ryan grew up as good friends. Ryan was best friends with her brother growing up. They both grew up on ranches, and Tessa was insecure about her looks because she developed earlier than the other girls her age, so she became somewhat of a tomboy and used to wear baggy clothes and stuff all the time. She decides to take her brother's place in this bachelor auction, and Ryan can't stand to see these other men bidding for her, so he bids the highest amount, of course, and they end up going on the fabulous date that was planned as a part of this auction, and they have this weekend in Dallas where they finally address their feelings for each other, have this really hot and sexy night, and then they're trying to navigate their new relationship and see where they fit. So it was a little awkward when during what the big inciting incident that causes them to do that third act breakup was that he's arguing with him because he didn't want to have rough sex with her, and she's like, well, I heard from your ex-girlfriend that you used to always have rough sex, so if you're not comfortable enough with me to have rough sex. And I'm like, it's just funny that was the catalyst for their breakup. And because he's going back and forth, he's like, well, I didn't actually like rough sex so much, that was really her thing, we just had a toxic relationship. And I actually found it a really fun, sexy, cute story. Great read from Reese Ryan as always. So then I ended up reading Just a Little Married, which I had on my shelf since it came out last year, but I had not picked it up yet. And this one was also part of a series. So I didn't read the first 2 books. I think reading the first 2 books would have helped a little bit more, because there was some big incident that happens in the first 2 books, which is a big car accident, and that caused some drama, and it's drama that's still being worked out years later. So we follow Travis and Riley, and they're in their second chance romance. They have met up after all these years, and Riley's planning this big gala, and she ends up needing Travis to be the celebrity chef. So I felt like the first part of the book focused heavily on the planning of the gala and them reconnecting. So even though fairly early she proposes this marriage of convenience so she can get at her trust fund, unlike most marriage of convenience stories where it's immediate marriage and they kind of awkwardly go through falling in love with each other, this didn't do that. It kind of built their relationship back up almost completely before they get married. So by the time they get married, it was just them settling in as an old couple. The gala that we saw so much of them planning for, I felt like we didn't get to see enough of it. We got to see the drama at the tail end, but it was more told to us all this happened at the gala and it was amazing, and then we're at this point now. And the book did that a couple of times where it would have an event and then recall what happened at earlier parts of the event, and then at the end were meeting up with the couple. There was a lot of drama with Travis and his family that I didn't mind the drama, but I would have liked it, like the foundation for it laid down earlier in the book, because it felt like a little rushed at the end, trying to tie up those loose ends. And once certain things started happening, it wasn't surprising the direction it went in. I don't know, I wasn't as sold on their chemistry as I was with other books I've read by Reese Ryan. This one wasn't my favorite by her, but I do enjoy her as a writer, so I'll definitely be reading more of her work. So while June was my best reading month this year as far as how many books I read, it wasn't necessarily my best reading month as far as how many books I thoroughly enjoyed. 2022 has been a different type of year. I'm reading less books that make me like vehemently angry or really happy, and reading more books that fall right into the middle. And I'm hoping that now that we're getting into the second half of the year, I will be reading more books that make me have strong emotions, because I prefer books that I can feel strongly about and have great discussions on. I would rather read something that I love that is super complicated versus something that I'm just like, yeah, it was okay. It didn't do too much, but it also didn't do enough. Like, I don't like books that are middle of the road, because they're very forgettable. You read them and then it's already out of your head within a few weeks. So far, July is starting off a little rocky with a read that I thought was going to be great. That hasn't been so great. So stay tuned for how that goes. And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. As always, all the books are listed down below, so in the description box, with affiliate links. If you click on the link, I do get a little bit of commission if you buy through Amazon. So everything is listed down below if any of these books sound like something you're interested in. Thank you so much for the support as always. I'm coming up to my 1 year on BookTube, and it's just blown by so fast, and I still can't believe so many people are clicking on my videos every month and just hearing my rambles about the different books I'm reading, even if it's nothing that's on your radar, and just listening to what I have to say. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.